I thank God for the privilege of this hour of meditation with you. We have reached a point in our considerations where we should be able to keep a unified vibrational pattern and move into a particularized consideration of certain of the Master's revelations of reality, which I would call the basic secrets of being. That which has gone before in our meditations provides the background and the foundation for an understanding of words that have tremendous significance and yet have had very little meaning to human beings generally. In the 6th chapter of Matthew, we find this particular portrayal beginning in the 19th verse. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Generally speaking, as you know, human beings imagine that by various patterns of good works or sacrifice or something, they are laying up for themselves treasures to be reaped in some hereafter, in some far distant heaven. For they have forgotten the Master's word, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. We have recognized that heaven is the place where God rules. Wherever God's control is established, there heaven is. Wherever God is denied the privilege of control, there man has hell. We have recognized in our study of the basic principles of being that the pneumoplasmic body has what we have termed God's side. We have recognized that man's self-activity, his subjection to evil spirits, etc., can disturb man's side of the pneumoplasmic layer, but that such self-active function cannot and does not in any one penetrate through to God's side. There is, with respect to each individual, as long as life remains in the physical body, a layer of pneumoplasmic substance in and around that individual, which is completely under God's control, wherein the divine design is established, and wherein man has not produced any distortion, of any kind whatsoever. This, then, insofar as the physical realm is concerned, is man's closest contact with heaven, the realm where there is divine control, the realm wherein there is no distortion. In another place, the master mentioned heaven as being within. Yes, heaven is within you, but human beings have had some very vague and ambiguous concepts with respect to that particular principle of reality. But once we begin to see and know the reality of the pneumoplasmic body and understand how pneumoplasm provides the means by which spirit unites with physical substance, we can begin to see that in the pneumoplasmic substance of your own individual being, there is the reality of the dominion of God, the reality of divine control, the reality of the kingdom of heaven. But that realm of control must be allowed to penetrate through to your side so that it may have meaning in relationship to you as a human being. Here, the master gives us very vital information, very important instruction. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth. We see human beings, even though they think themselves to be Christians, even though they do what they think they must do in order to have a life hereafter, busily engaged in making forms, doing things on earth, with the feeling, the attitude, the conviction that these things are somehow separate from God, that one cannot have heaven on earth. So, wherever any human being follows such a pattern of endeavor, he is undertaking to lay up for himself treasure upon earth, depending upon what he can do with respect to the manipulation of physical substance. The approach to power in relationship to the manipulation of physical substance is, as matters now stand in the world, through money or physical wealth. By reason of money, man gains certain power to arbitrarily change, move, or use physical substance as such. But that effort is based upon man's conviction that he can make things according to his own desires and purposes for his own pleasures without regard to the Spirit of God, and that he must do the best he can here because he cannot actually enter the kingdom of heaven until he dies. When we begin to realize that God has a means established and provided under the laws of cosmic being by which physical substance is to be controlled, is to be manipulated or changed or shaped or used, we will no longer place so much faith upon man's method. While the world is as it is, we must of necessity use money. And in fact, there is nothing wrong with money. Sometimes people say money is the root of all evil. But that is not true. The Bible makes no such statement. The statement is that the love of money is the root of all evil, not that money is. Money as such is not to be considered as having any more significance in the sense of being a root of evil than any other physical substance. But the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of man's method of gaining control over and manipulating material substance. When man loves man's method for controlling and manipulating material substance more than he loves God, he certainly is not in position to let divine control have any meaning. And he will be establishing designs and patterns of control according to his own concepts and purposes. And no matter how good the purpose of his function may be, that will be, as we noted in our meditation this morning, evil. Evil imaginations, because the designs that man so establishes will not conform to the beauty of design which God has established in truth. Therefore, we begin to see that if we are to reach a point where God's power actually manifests through us, we must have the machinery, the connecting links. We must utilize the divine design in coming into that pattern of function which will allow us to share God's creative activity. In this connection, we can see, realize that there must be the machinery of reality if we are to do the things which must be done. One of the great mistakes which human beings have made in time past is to gain some idea, some concept, more or less vague, of the reality of spiritual power, to intellectually accept that idea, to gain some idea of what the divine pattern is or should be, and then to try to function on earth in relationship to the present patterns of being, the present mechanisms of function, as if the machinery of reality were already in operation. We can cite failure after failure in relationship to good men and women, sincere and earnest, down through the centuries, where this was the basic problem. There are, for instance, those who, because of spiritual or religious reasons, say that we should use the power of God, the power of prayer, something else, but we should not have war. We should not participate in war. Or there are those who say, now God's power is certainly adequate to provide healing of the physical body, and if we are going to be true to our realization of that fact, we must not use drugs, etc. Now, both of these concepts are equally ridiculous, because from the standpoint of our function in relationship to the divine, we do not yet have the manifestation of the machinery necessary to accomplish that which human beings are inclined to attempt to accomplish. This very thing could wreck our endeavors and our service, and we would go the same way that many other earnest, sincere people have gone. Because having glimpsed an idea, having gained something of a vision, we would begin to try to act on the basis of what we think that would require without having the machinery to do it. Once we have the machinery to do it, we will be able to do it. And then we will not need the other methods. But until we do have that machinery, we'd better use the best machinery that is available to us. This does not in any sense detract from the efficacy of attunements. We are building the machinery. We are moving in the right direction. And the power of God is being made manifest. But what is required in relationship to this machinery? Human beings, enough human beings to form a body nucleus, perfectly centered, perfectly coordinated, having allowed all the distortions to be removed from their pneumoplasmic bodies so that the kingdom of God is actually in control in relationship to their lives. Then there will be the manifestation of that machinery. We have it partly manifest now. But in one sense, we are only building a working model at the present time. We do not have the facilities, the material, the substance in relationship to human beings and many other factors to build the complete thing now. We are developing a working model through which something of that divine power and purpose may manifest. And to some degree it is done now. We see the manifestation of God's power in many, many ways. But until we recognize the importance of the machinery of reality, human beings will be trying to do something which they are not equipped to do. And in that trying, while they may allow the manifestation of momentary blessings, they will most certainly produce conditions which bring about failure. Now, we will, as we continue on, give more consideration to exactly what we mean by the machinery of reality. But it involves human beings who are actually under the dominion and the control of God. Manifest expressions of the kingdom of heaven on earth. So our first responsibility is to reach that point here, individually and collectively, that we may begin to let the power of God manifest on a basis that will make it possible to do all these things which certainly should be done. We are not going to accept any substitutes on any permanent basis, but to reject those things that are now in operation would certainly be foolhardy, because we do not have the machinery to do the job. For instance, how many of you would like to have, let alone war, how many of you would like to have all the police officers in the United States go off duty and go on vacation, say, to South America? Just leave the country, so. How many of you would like that? Oh, we have many good people, but what about those who would take advantage of the situation? And are we in position to establish a control pattern even in our own land if the police force should walk off the job? We certainly do not. And there's no use deluding ourselves into thinking that we have. We anticipate that in season such a police force will not be necessary. But now it most certainly is, and we can thank God for the police force. In exactly the same way, we must consider the problem with respect to war, or we must consider the problem with respect to illness, to manifest in and through individuals who have not reached a point of knowing how to respond to God, how to let the laws of God work, how to share in the divine outworking. Do you think that if we had sufficient power to let a greater manifestation of healing come, that we could just heal anyone? Certainly not. Our Master himself, who let the healing power of God come forth so beautifully, went into a certain district during his ministry, and they said, "Why, we know this man. Is he not the son of the carpenter? Anyone that thinks that he has any special power is just silly. There's no use paying any attention to him. We know him." And the Master left their coast without having done many wonderful works. There were people there that needed to be healed, but they were not healed. Why? Because they were not ready to do their part in relationship to the manifestation of God's healing power. So, for those individuals, there is certainly the need for drugs. And that is not to say that within the scope of our own program, we may not at times need some drugs. However, once we begin to see the vital importance of the machinery of reality, so that we do not keep trying to do something we are not equipped to do, we can see how vitally important it is that we let that machinery be developed. And that is what we are here for. To do our part individually and collectively in so conforming with God's laws and the principles of being, the divine design, that we may do our part in letting that power manifest, in developing the machinery by which we can begin to do those things which so sorely need to be done. But we should not in any moment delude ourselves into thinking that we are equipped to do something which we are not. And if we try to do something for which we do not have the equipment, we will fail. And we do not need any more failures than we've already had within the scope of this ministry. Now we come back to the Master's words, which I read to you before. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth. The treasure. The treasure is the valuable thing, isn't it? Now we can have material things and consider them to be very important. We can take care of them. But is the material, the physical thing, really the treasure? There is nothing wrong with having physical things, material things. We need them. And in fact, without material things, we cannot minister. Without a material body, you are of no value on earth, no matter how perfect your God being, no matter how willing your spirit. For spirit can have no meaning on earth except through physical substance, by reason of physical substance. So, your physical body is essential to your ministry, and without it, your ministry on earth would be at a close. Material things, physical things. But are those material things, the physical things, the treasure? Or is there a true treasure, something that has a greater value within or behind or above these material things? If the highest value of which we are aware is attributed to the physical things, then our endeavors are plainly an attempt to lay up treasure on earth. But once we begin to actually know the reality of the fact that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and that kingdom of heaven comes to us as far as the pneumoplasmic substance, it's right here in relationship to each and every one of us. It's here, within reach, at hand, available. we can begin to see that when we realize the importance of allowing the dominion of God to shape and mold those things which are established in the pneumoplasmic substance, the physical substance will begin to conform to that divinely established pattern. As man has invented money as a means of gaining control over and manipulating physical substance, God provided pneumoplasm. Money, as it is used in the world, is man's substitute for pneumoplasm. Because the real basis of control of physical substance and manipulating it, forming it, control over it, rests in pneumoplasm. The Spirit of God working through pneumoplasm into physical substance. Now, we could have money merely as a means of exchange and not have it as a substitute for pneumoplasm. If it's merely a basis of exchange by which one may maintain a pattern of relative values. But man uses money as a means of gaining control over physical substance and of manipulating it for his own purposes. He buys land, he buys steel, he buys the substance to make buildings and all the rest of it in order to establish his own control over physical substance. Perhaps it's a factory, perhaps it's an office building, perhaps it's something else. Now, there is nothing wrong with having a factory or an office building or a building like this. The point is not with respect to whether we should or should not have physical things, because we should. Without physical things, we are helpless in this realm. But man's love for money and man's wrong use of money establishes the basic cause of all evil, because man loves the substance which man has developed as a substitute for pneumoplasm, and he is not loving God. He is loving. He is using the principle, but not according to the divine design. So instead of loving money as such, we can use money, nevertheless, as a means of exchange. And there is nothing wrong with money, or having it, or using it. I wish I had $300 million to use in the Lord's service. We would do with a little less for the moment, but any amount up to that we would gladly accept any time. And if you offer more, I would even consider that perhaps. In any case, there is nothing wrong with money. The only thing wrong is man's attitude toward it, man's uses of it, because man loves it instead of God, and he substitutes money to obtain control and manipulation of material things, rather than letting that control and manipulation be established on the basis which God designed. And man's method keeps material things separate from God. Now, there is a vital point, because material things are a part of creation. And just as surely as your body should have a relationship to the Creator that is correct and proper, we as human beings should be so functioning that the relationship between every physical thing, the soil of the ground, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, all of these things should have their proper relationship to deity. But man has cut off that proper relationship to a very high degree, because man himself does not have it. But man was created as a means of establishing dominion on earth over material things, physical things, so that those physical things could have a proper relationship to deity. Man, gaining control over physical substance and manipulating it to his own purposes, has failed in that process to reestablish the proper relationship between the physical substance itself and God. Because the physical substance of this chair has just as much right to an opportunity for proper relationship with God as the physical substance of my body. The physical substance of the whole earth must be brought back into proper relationship with God. And then there will be no discordant patterns of outworking in the elements, for instance. People call storms and various other things that arise, which are beyond man's control, acts of God, as if God were responsible for them. God did not cause those so-called acts of God. Man did, because man has not allowed the elements to have their proper pattern of relationship to the Creator, where there could be dominion over the earth. So, it is not a matter of getting away from physical substance or denying it, not using it. It is not a matter of feeling that physical substance is in some way harmful or sinful, not money or anything else. Physical substance may be misused, but physical substance as it is not in any sense evil. It is something which God created, over which God's dominion was supposed to manifest. So our function is in relationship to physical substance. Our purpose, every time we make a move of any kind, must have a meaning in relationship to physical substance, the physical substance of the human body or something else. But working with this physical substance, as we do and should do and must do, we must not lay up for ourselves treasures on earth. The substance with which we work, no matter how much it is, where it is not our treasure. It is not the thing of highest or greatest value to us. That which makes possible the control and manipulation of substance is of more value than the substance. Man sees that basic principle, and so he proceeds to love money, the substitute. Now, money's not supposed to be a substitute, and we could have money without it being a substitute, but man uses it as a substitute. We are coming back to the point where we are beginning to realize that God actually provides a means by which physical substance can and should be controlled. A man has not recognized the means by which God, Spirit, the things of the invisible, connect up with the earth and the things of the earth. He has not had awareness of how that power of God can have meaning on earth in physical substance. Yet there are various evidences that such a thing is possible. If we reject the idea, we must reject Jesus Christ, because he gave evidence that the power of God can act on physical substance. There are many other evidences. So, under God, we have a recognition of the tremendous value of pneumatoplasm. It is not the highest treasure. Our treasure is in God's love and truth and life. Those things that make possible our true relationship to deity allow the invisible to become visible. But that connecting link must be there. In the electrical field, a switch is a means by which a contact can be made or broken. Now suppose we ask Chris to go out to the transformer and throw off the switch, break the contact. The wires are still there. The light bulb would still be here. The recorder would still be here. Various things on the place, like electric motors, would be here. Everything ready to operate. The physical, material things would be there. But if there was no current getting through, they would not operate. A light bulb would have only potential value, an electric motor or anything else, until that connection with the source of power was established. Exactly the same principle is at work in relationship to our lives. You are human beings, light bulbs or electric motors or what have you. You have a potential. The moment you are really connected up and the power from the source is getting through you into the earth, you have value. You can go to work. But without that connection, it will not work. You will not work in the divine pattern. You can move around because you have physical life, a little higher form of it than the animal kingdom, but it doesn't last too long. And people call that living, and it's merely existing. We need to begin to see that while we have the material things here to work with, we must get them connected up with the source of power. Your life, your physical body, with the physical life that is in it, must be connected up to the source of power. And then, if after we had been here in darkness for a little time, Chris would throw the switch and make the connection, we'd have light again. We could see one another. The electric motors would begin to run in the refrigerators, perhaps, or something else. The recorder could operate once more. So it is with all material things, including you, the human being. Now man, having a physical body, being a human being, is inclined to think of physical substance as having primary importance. It is important, but not as important as that which makes possible its use. Suppose all of the electric power plants anywhere in our vicinity were suddenly put out of commission. Of what value would our light bulbs, our electric motors, etc. be? Potential, yes, but for the time being of no value. They are of value, but not in the sense that they are the primary treasure. And it is in this that man has made such a tragic mistake. Lay not up for yourselves treasures on earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Now there is nothing wrong with having treasures, of recognizing something of primary value and importance. But the physical substance becomes of secondary value. There is something higher. Of course, we can go to the point of saying God. We can go to the point of saying all of that which is of the invisible realm. But our treasure is to be laid up in heaven. And heaven is at hand. Not a far distant heaven, but the heaven that is at hand within reach, available to us in the sense of the pneumoplasmic substance. And when we begin to lay up treasure in heaven, what does the Master say here? For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. What is your heart? It is your feeling nature, your feeling realm, the emotional realm, that which has the capacity of feeling and appreciation. And when the feeling pattern in you establishes the right pattern in your pneumoplasmic substance, so that the things of God start coming through to you, they will begin to manifest first in heaven. You can keep them from manifesting in your heaven, because it isn't really your heaven until your side of the pneumoplasmic layer is under divine control. Even though heaven is within you, it isn't your heaven until you let your side of the pneumoplasmic layer come under divine control. But when it is your heaven, that which is formed in pneumoplasm, which is to the human eye, generally speaking, or ordinarily invisible. If you have ever seen particular radiation from me, for instance, what is it? Pneumoplasmic substance. I know quite a number of you have seen it. But you don't have to see it to know that it's there. But that which is shaped in the pneumoplasmic substance with the divine control behind it, that which is patterned there so that it is through on your side, will begin to control physical substance. Because physical substance cannot refuse. Physical substance is so designed that it must respond to that control and be manipulated according to that design, whatever it is. There is no intelligence in the physical substance to make it refuse, except in the level of human beings, where man uses his God-given talents to fight against God. But physical substance, the substance of the earth, the substance of all kinds, is subject to that control, that dominion, once it is established on your side of the pneumoplasmic layer. Now, when the Master was talking about heaven, he was talking about the heaven that is at hand to you. Not heaven as it is with the central point of all deity, not heaven as it is far away, not heaven as it relates to someone else even. Your heaven, your part of heaven, the part of heaven for which you are responsible. And you are supposed to lay up your treasure in heaven, to shape it and mold it, to let it be in the pneumoplasmic sphere of your own being. Now, if you try to shape this pneumoplasmic substance according to your concept, your idea and desire, no matter how good your desire may be, it will spoil it. It will be evil. That is why the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is just that. Man trying to do good always makes evil. Hadn't you ever noticed that? Man trying to do good always makes evil. He thinks he will pick only the good fruit of the tree, and it always turns out to be evil. Not evil, perhaps, as human beings ordinarily think of it, but evil in the sense of being out of pattern in relationship to the divine design. Therefore, it must be the divine design coming through from God's side. Lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, your heaven, the heaven that is at hand, here, now. And where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. If the feeling pattern is centered with respect to physical things as such, there will be no feeling current, no love current working through to God, which will make possible your connection with your heaven. For when you let some evil spirit mar the surface of pneumoplasm on your side, you are shutting yourself off from your heaven. To lay up treasures in heaven, not up there somewhere, not far away, but right here on earth. What did the master say? Thy kingdom come, thy control come into the earth. How? By human beings in the ordinary sense trying to do God's will? Trying to do God's work? No. That would be blasphemy. Because man's strength is not sufficient to do God's will. He wasn't designed for that purpose. If he is going to say, I will find what God's will is, and then I will do it, he blasphemes God. But he can let God's will be done in him. By what power? By God's power. If we say that man, separate from God, is weak, well and good. But man is not supposed to have strength to equal God's in and of himself. It's most fortunate that God didn't create him that way in any case, isn't it? We would have had some conflict in heaven. But man is not supposed to have the strength and the power to do these things. He is a mechanism by which that strength and power can come through into the physical realm, the means by which it can manifest. And it is God's power through you that can do God's will. Your strength is not sufficient to cause you to, or permit you to do God's will. It must be God's power working through you that does God's will. It must be God's intelligence working through you that makes it possible for you to comprehend all that is needful. It must be God's wisdom working through you, which makes it possible for you to function in harmony with others, in a proper sense of the fitness of things. So, our connecting link with God, with the invisible, is the pneumoplasmic pattern, which the master called heaven. What I have been talking to you about as the pneumoplasmic body is exactly the same thing that the master called heaven. The heaven that is at hand. The kingdom of heaven that is at hand. For as I have pointed out, that divine design and control are present on God's side of your pneumoplasmic body. They're there already. You do not have to put them there or beg God to put them there. They are there now. And all we have to do is to begin to receive that through into ourselves on a perfectly sensible, scientific basis. Something that works as surely as any law in all the universe. So, instead on earth, in the ordinary human fashion, we begin to let God's provision establish the means of control over physical substance. And physical substance loves to yield to pneumoplasmic control. Always. The physical substance of your body. If your mind doesn't get in the way and spoil it, the physical substance of your body, the flesh of your body, physical substance anywhere, everywhere, physical substance loves to yield to pneumoplasmic control, or the control appearing through the pneumoplasmic substance. Just as surely as a babe loves to cuddle in its mother's arms, all physical substance, without any exception anywhere, from the soil, the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the flesh of your own body, all physical substance loves to yield and respond to control, made manifest through pneumoplasmic substance. And physical substance never refuses to respond to that control, except as man gets in the way and spoils the working of the divine pattern. The machinery that God designed was perfect, and all we have to do is let it get connected up, and the dominion is reestablished. And the power of God begins to work in our daily lives. The treasure in heaven begins to take form on earth. You think our treasures are not to appear on earth? Of course they are. It's God's intention that our treasures should appear on earth. What did God create the earth for? For a place for man to live. And he's going to have everything somewhere else? Oh no. God made the earth a paradise. He provided all the means by which the things of God could come into manifestation, so that the treasures of heaven should have form on earth. Now, if we try to lay up for ourselves treasures on earth, we'll follow the usual pattern of man's self-active function. But when we lay up for ourselves treasures on earth, those treasures are in heaven. If we actually lay up for ourselves treasures in heaven, those heavenly treasures will be given form on earth. For that is God's purpose, God's intent, God's design. And as soon as we let physical substance actually take form according to that divine design, which is first established in pneumoplasmic substance, our treasures will appear on earth. The things of God will be coming down from God out of heaven into the earth. We remember the question that God asked with respect to the creation of the world. I would like to touch briefly, we'll have to come back to this, upon this great examination. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? How many times have we heard people darkening counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. This clearly shows that from God's standpoint, a man, who is truly a man, should be able to answer the questions. I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. The Lord wasn't mocking Job, and he is not mocking us. He is asking a straightforward question, and he expects a straightforward answer. And he says, Answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Now, from the divine standpoint, if you have understanding, you know where you were when God laid the foundations of the earth. And you can tell me about it. And if you do not know, do not try to tell me that you have understanding, because you haven't. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. All the morning stars sang together. The morning is the beginning of a new day, isn't it? It's in the east. The morning stars, the focalizations of consciousness, which make possible the beginning of the manifestation of that which is coming out of the east out of the future into manifestation in form. What was the star of the east that the wise men followed when Jesus Christ was born? The star of the east. The star, the focalization of consciousness established in relationship to the future, by which the things of God could come into the realm of form. They did come into the realm of form to a limited extent in Jesus and through him. But man didn't let it continue to come and increase until it should cover the whole earth. But the star of the east, the focalization of divine consciousness, direction, the bright and morning star. What was it that fell? Lucifer? How art thou fallen, O star of the morning? Does that talk about some angel that fell? Oh, no. Not some devil, as human beings think of an entity. The bright and morning star. How art thou fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Lucifer, the fallen human consciousness that does not allow itself to be brought to focus as the bright and morning star, which relates to the coming of the things of God out of heaven, out of the future, into the realm of form here on earth. But those things come not as finished things in the sense of physical form, because the physical substance required for that manifestation is here on earth. The vibrational factors are in heaven. But the physical substance for that manifestation is not in that heaven. Don't expect it to be there. Don't expect that physical substance to come from there. It is not there. It is here. And until the physical substance right here conforms to those patterns, those vibrational factors that are coming from God out of heaven, from out of the east, from out of the future, the garden that God has planted eastward in Eden, until the physical substance of earth conforms to those patterns will not have form on earth. It's the physical substance here that must be brought to a point of conforming to those patterns. And those things of God will not, cannot, never have, and never will have form on earth except as this substance here on earth is used to give form to that which is of the divine design. And how shall that control be exerted into the realm of this substance? Through pneumoplasm, or through what the master called heaven. It's one and the same thing. But what is heaven? From a scientific standpoint, you had to begin to know what it was, and to see that it is actual substance, that it is real, that we're not talking about something fanciful, that it's real and that it has a relationship to you. And then, once you begin to recognize that, you can begin to let the physical substance of your body yield, because the physical substance loves to yield to the pneumoplasm. It thrills the physical substance to yield to the pneumoplasm. It's all created that way. So, until you begin to see and know these things, and until you begin to lay up treasure in heaven on a basis that lets that treasure actually begin to manifest in your side of heaven, you have no means of causing the physical substance on earth to conform. And that treasure in heaven must have form on earth if it is to have any meaning. Laying up for yourself treasure in heaven, according to the human concept, is utterly useless. It's of no value. It accomplishes nothing. But laying up for yourself treasure in heaven, according to that which the master taught, allows that treasure to begin to have form, physical form, right here on earth. And the heavenly treasure is revealed on earth. Do you think you need to increase the treasures of heaven? You're going to go up there and make heaven a wealthier place? Have you made the earth a wealthier place? How about letting the treasures of heaven come into the earth? That's our business. That the physical substance of the earth may give form to those treasures. And until we begin to see that on the basis of these principles, we cannot be what God intended us to be. Herein is one of the basic secrets of being. And I thank God for your response that has allowed you to begin to comprehend the truth that makes you free. Our gracious Lord and Holy King, we would so love Thee that Thy love may penetrate through to us and have meaning in us. That Thy kingdom may be established in and through us, to the end that we may, in Thy holy name, have dominion over the earth. We remember that divine commission which Thou didst give when man was first formed on earth. That man made in the image and likeness of God, male and female, should have dominion over the whole earth. That the things of heaven might manifest on earth to Thy glory. For we know that we cannot increase Thy glory in heaven. All we on earth can do is to let Thy glory manifest on earth, have form on earth, and only so can we glorify Thee.